Julius Caesar wept when reading the history of Alexander in Alexandria. When asked why he was weeping, he said, "Do you not think it is matter for sorrow that while Alexander, at my age, was already king of so many people, I have as yet achieved no brilliant success? Of course, comparing yourself to others is often painful. It is like going to the hospital. It is not pleasant, yet you emerge healthier. Today's 5-minute Stoic video will challenge everything you believe, so a brief warning that only the strong-minded should join me in this powerful exploration. Let us begin. In the language of René Girard, we're mimetic animals, so when surrounded by competitive and materialistic people, it is difficult to avoid feeling the urge to join the competition. The larger house, better car, and trophy partner naturally become more attractive, even for someone not initially driven to seek those things. The obvious meaning of this is that one should find models and a social circle that one wants to imitate. In other words, the most important lesson when sizing up to other people is who we choose to emulate. How to find who to emulate? So how can we find people to emulate? Well, this can be done by changing our physical and social environment. This cannot be underrated. A less drastic measure is to read the histories of excellent people. This, after all, is what brought Julius Caesar to tears. The Stoic philosophers advised that while contemplating the ones we strive to be like, we should look for a perfectly virtuous person. Of course, in our lives, it might be difficult to find people around us that fits that standard, but that does not mean we cannot bring one to mind. We can choose a historical character, a fictional one, or perhaps imagine the best version of ourselves. The Stoic philosopher Seneca gave this advice to his friend while looking for who to emulate. He said, "Choose yourself a Cato. If Cato seems too severe for you, a Laelius, a man whose character is not quite so strict. Choose someone whose way of life as well as words and whose very face, as mirroring the character that lies behind it, have won your approval. Be always pointing him out to yourself, either as your guardian or as your model." There is a need, in my view, for someone as a standard against which our characters can measure themselves. Without a ruler to do it against, you won't make crooked straight. Cato was a senator, famous for his high principles and consistent behavior. Laelius was known as Laelius the Wise, an admirable man, but not as demanding as Cato. Cato refused to violate his principles, famously refusing to accept clemency from Julius Caesar, a man who he, not unjustly, saw as a tyrant. He committed suicide instead of compromising his values. Laelius did not sacrifice himself in the same way. He is portrayed as a moderate statesman with deep knowledge of philosophy. By carefully reflecting on role models, we can use them as motivation and guides for action. This practice is formalized in the contemplation of the sage. Think of this meditation as mental exercise and practice, picturing others and yourself acting with virtue. The goal is to be able to act with virtue when the scenarios present themselves. Remember this, and picture the world in as much detail as you can. Use your realistic role models as inspiration. Acting well is possible. Each hero is an existence proof of that. You can do the same. You've likely acted with excellence before. You can do it again. Many people let peers measure their behavior. Unfortunately, peers aren't always chosen for their virtues. By contemplating a sage, we can counteract this effect. Let the virtuous measure your life. So bring to mind how a virtuous person would act in your place. Consider the advice they'd give you. Experience the drive to act well when they're observing you. This is not always an easy exercise, especially when one notices the gap between your behavior and the sage's. But to feel the shame of comparison is to approach virtue.